Former West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin telling Jon Stewart how Democrats lost support from working class voters in his state.
I can tell you why the union coal miners and all the factory workers that I grew up with, where they are today, why they switched and started voting Republican. They believe that the Democrat Party in Washington basically spends more resources, effort, and time on able-bodied people that don't work or won't work than you do those who do.
Joining us now is senior writer for the Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor Joe Concha. Joe, I don't know. What he said there kind of conflicts with what we saw last night. So what's going to have a bigger impact on the midterms? What Manchin said there, or basically last night's enthusiasm for Democrat/socialist policies and candidates?
It's a great question, Todd. I guess it depends on what states that we're talking about in those midterms, because Manchin's exactly correct. It's one of the big reasons why he left the Democrat Party. And for those who say, well, what about the elections yesterday, to your point, Todd, someone like Zohran Mamdani, for example, won in New York not because he captured the kind of working class voters that Democrats of the past have always captured here, but his coalition in New York were young people with college degrees, young women to the tune of about 80%, and those not naturally born in the United States. That's fine in New York, but Democrats are going to have a real problem in purple states where the working class, union workers, steel workers, United Auto workers, people that work in the restaurant industry, places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, other states like North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, they're going to have some real problems there if they're alienating those types of folks. So Democrats, they'd be wise not to look at these elections yesterday as some sort of roadmap. Just because they won in blue states, it is not a swing state model, guys.
We haven't talked, Joe, yet about the Seattle mayoral race or Minneapolis as well. Those two races are still too close to call, and socialist candidates there are still very much in play. And one of the issues that is emerging as to why is this issue of affordability. And that's something that Zohran Mamdani tapped into, and other Democratic socialist candidates across the country. Republicans are going to have to respond to that. They have a year to do so. What's going to happen next?
Precisely. And I think the way, Carly, that you respond to that is how the economy is going to perform over the next year. In other words, if Trump's tariffs stay in place and the economy really starts to take off as far as growth, as far as prices coming down a bit, or at least not going up anymore, then I think then that will be the argument that Republicans can make. If it ends up not happening, then socialists could come in and say, OK, we're going to try the free stuff model. We're going to talk about affordability without a real plan to actually do it outside of government controls, which, as we've seen from everywhere from the Soviet Union to Cuba to Venezuela, simply do not work. So I think in the end, Republicans can make the argument, but it'll be conditions on the ground that ultimately decide how those midterms are going to go.
If you weren't confused by the results of yesterday's election, maybe you'll be confused by this. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene with some compliments for the host of The View. Watch.
I want to say that I think that all of us right here are doing a great job of exchanging our ideas and things that we believe in, and we're doing it in a very professional and kind way. I believe that people with powerful voices like myself and like you, and especially women to women, we need to pave a new path.
20 seconds to you, Joe, to make sense of Bizarro View.
Well, the charm offensive was smart, but it didn't exactly feel authentic. I mean, The View is the most hostile program against conservatives on the air right now, and there's a lot of competition on that front. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was only invited because she's been critical of President Trump. No pro-Trump Republicans have appeared on that show in years. Now, all that said, and I'll leave it here, when the ratings come out soon, you're going to see that this was probably their highest-rated show of the year. If The View was smart, they would continue to bite on pro-Trump people or Ben Shapiro, but they just simply will not do it.
It's a combination we never thought we'd see, and great analysis on it. Joe, thank you so much.
So this morning, America's largest city handing the keys to its first socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani, beating Cuomo with a record turnout, highest since 1969. In neighboring New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Shirelli, what am I saying, beat Donald Trump, backed by Jack Ciattarelli for governor. That was a surprise. Look at that margin.
Yeah, huge. While in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger making history as the Commonwealth's first female governor. This as Democrat Jay Jones becomes the next attorney general, despite making violent texts about an AG and GOP lawmaker and his young kids.
Special report anchor and executive editor Bret Baier. He's also the chief political anchor for the network. Bret Baier joins us now.
Good morning.
Good morning. Brett, big picture, looking at all of these different races, I know they're strongly Democrat areas, but what should the Republicans learn from that night?
A couple of things. This is a big loss. You can say that these states were traditionally blue, but you can also say that heading in, there was some thought that, especially in New Jersey, that Ciattarelli would do better. The spreads here are surprising. Maybe not the results, but the spreads. And if you look inside the numbers, there are some dangerous things. One, young women overwhelmingly in New Jersey and Virginia supported the Democrat based on economy, on immigration, maybe those ICE images. The affordability push by Mamdani really sticks. And that's basically inflation and how people feel about the economy. So this dichotomy between how Wall Street's doing and how big business is doing and how you feel about it at home is something Republicans really have to look at closely. But look at this spread in Virginia. It's massive.
Do you think that the young people, especially in the Mamdani race, which is fascinating to me, do you think that they liked his solutions that he was putting forward, or he was the only one who was actually talking about it?
They turned out in droves. Young people
they did.
I mean, in big numbers. 18 to 39 came out for Mamdani big. I think Cuomo started to close at the end because he was saying, here's the fearful things, here are the things you have to be worried about. But he was such a bad candidate at the beginning, it seemed like it was too late.
What about two things? What about the Hispanic vote? And what about the Hispanic vote as well as the female vote going to Democrats without abortion really being front and center? For the longest time, people thought, well, that was the reason, Republicans are vulnerable because the pro-life movement, perhaps women were rallying against that. But that wasn't an issue.
No, it really seems like it's economy. It really seems like it's how they feel, grocery shopping, how affordability. There is some other, there's a Trump factor here. He is right to say he was not on the ballot, and when he's not, it doesn't produce the same emotion, but it does produce emotion on the other side, the anti-Trump voter, and they came out in droves as well.
That's a problem for Republicans moving forward. I mean, President Trump is not going to be on the ballot in the future, so they've got to really put forward better candidates that can address these issues.
100%. And, there were some candidate issues there as well. I think looking at today, there are some silver linings for Republicans because it's a wake-up call. And it's like we got to get talking more about the economy, affordability, inflation. And while the administration says there's going to be this golden age and they believe it, they're not feeling it.
What about the shutdown in Northern Virginia especially? How do you think the shutdown is playing? Do you think the Republicans are losing that messaging?
I think both parties are losing, but the longer it goes on, the more painful it is. I bet they're going to try to get to a solution sometime this week. I'm definitely going to ask President Trump about that today. I'm going down to Miami on the side of an economic forum that he's speaking to, and I'll have an interview with him.
What about the Democrats in California, Prop 50? Because they claim that they're doing the same thing as my home state of Texas. But these maps are more evasive, and it's not going to give Republicans a shot at all in their state. How do you think the reaction is going to be toward that?
Well, one, Gavin Newsom's going to take it as an endorsement of his 2028 run, I think, because of the overwhelming support for Prop 50. Two, I think, Republicans in California are going to feel deflated because they're going to lose these seats probably. And three, Republicans across the country have more firepower in their redistricting in different states than Democrats do. So it may be, this battle comes back and forth. The Supreme Court's going to weigh in on this Voting Rights Act situation. It could be 19 seats, depending on what they decide.
Can you explain that?
Basically, it suggests that you can or cannot do this based on race. And if they come out with a specific ruling, you're talking about states that could redraw the maps, and it changes towards the Republicans in double digits.
Because right now the law would say you can't do that because it looks like you're doing it on race, and the Supreme Court will come out and say, race doesn't matter, draw the districts, don't worry about it.
Real quickly, Britt, the argument that Republicans are making in Texas is that the areas that they targeted, the Hispanic support, the minority support actually grew for Republican in those areas versus in California where the Democrats are changing it.
Yeah, that's part of the argument. And I think that this battle is really going to determine who controls the House of Representatives, and that's going to springboard to 28. One more thing. Supreme Court today, you can't overstate the significance of this hearing on tariffs. How this goes down, how this ruling happens for the president, really affects his entire foreign policy and where he's been.
Can you break down that for people who may not be aware of what this case is about?
Basically, it's about whether the president has the right to use this emergency provision, saying that it's an emergency for him to use tariffs on countries around the world. Traditionally, under the Constitution, Congress would have a significant role here. He's saying there's an emergency situation, and the court's going to decide whether that's the case. If they say, no, you can't do it, unwinding all of this would be just really
and there are things that he could do, but he's not even bringing that up because he wants the pressure on the Supreme Court to, he says, make the right decision. And Scott Bessent's going to be watching the proceedings today. When will we get a verdict on this? Before the end of the year?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think that they're going to go into emergency mode. But the Supreme Court takes its own time. We don't have a calendar for the Supreme Court.
So you got a big interview today.
Yeah, so I'll go down to Miami at this America Business Forum down in Miami. It'll be a big event. And then he's going to deliver a speech, and then I'll have an interview after.
President after that. All right.
Excellent.
And by the way, yeah, we're going to watch your coverage all day, and also congratulations. Your book's #2 in the country.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Teddy
you,
Roosevelt, baby.
You know, it's thanks to your radio show.
That's what I think. I just wear them out every day. You're right, Fred.
Now,
Thanks so much for
everyone
coming
loves Teddy Roosevelt.
Thank you.
All right.
Now, Ohio gubernatorial candidate Vivek Ramaswamy urging his fellow Republicans to learn from last night's losses and reprioritize. Watch.
We got handed to us in New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City. Democrats swept all three. There's 2 key lessons for Republicans. Listen carefully. Number 1, our side needs to focus on affordability. Make the American dream affordable. Bring down costs, electric costs, grocery costs, healthcare costs, and housing costs, and lay out how we're going to do it.
This as a new poll finds about 70% of Americans say groceries are more expensive now than they were a year ago. And about 60% of them are blaming President Trump. According to our Fox News voter polling, the economy and cost of living were the biggest issues for voters in New York City's mayoral race and New Jersey and Virginia's governor's races. And in all of those races, the Democrat or Democratic Socialist won. This morning, Trump pointed to the shutdown as a possible strike against Republican candidates. Watch.
Last night, it was, not expected to be a victory. It was very Democrat areas, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. Also about the shutdown and how that relates to last night. I think if you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And that was a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor. But I don't know about that, but I was honored that they said that.
All right, Brian Kilmeade, what's your analysis?
Wow, a lot. I mean, we represent the morning shows today, so we've been doing this for a while. A couple of things. Republicans did not have a good day. So anyone who says, well, not really that bad. No, it was bad. Jack Ciattarelli, I thought, was a really strong candidate. I thought his message was clear and crisp. I was surprised he lost at all, let alone by double digits. But you live in New Jersey, I live in Long Island, where there's a sliver of Nassau County, as you know, did very well. And Bruce Blakeman is the Nassau County executive, might even run for governor, at least Stefanik too. And I think the governor's race next year becomes really intriguing in New York. And I think a lot of people left Manhattan, left you, Rosanna, and they went out to Long Island to get away. A lot of people went down to Florida. And I thought it was an interesting stat last night that Ron DeSantis said, when I took office, there were 300,000 more Democrats than Republicans. Now we have 1 million more Republicans. So America is voting with their feet. And I think in a way it's a little scary because we're really separating as a country, not in a straight line like the Civil War, but we're in boxes. Okay, I'm out of this state. I don't agree. That's a little scary. The other thing is what they tried to do is nationalize in New Jersey, and they tried to nationalize in Virginia, and they were effective. They ran against Trump. Trump wouldn't have won and has not won in either one of those states. And the candidates were unable to overcome it. In the case of Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, great biography, not a strong candidate. So I don't think she was going to win. The biggest shocker, the second biggest shocker to me is the Attorney General's story. And for Jay Jones to win, I'm stunned by that. I'm stunned that the people of Virginia don't have higher standards.
All right, Rosanna, I want to go to you now, respond to everything. But also, let's play a Mamdani clip, because I want to get your thoughts on Mamdani in that particular race. Guys, rule.
I think the lesson for the president is that it's not enough to diagnose the crisis in working class Americans' lives. You have to deliver on addressing that crisis. This is a president who ran a campaign on the promise of cheaper groceries, and now, as was said by one of our co-chairs, has gone so far as to cut SNAP benefits for close to 2 million New Yorkers. Someone who is literally making it harder to afford those same groceries whose price he was decrying not that long ago. And what scares Republicans across the country is the fact that we will actually deliver on this agenda. And the contrast is something that they cannot bear to witness.
You interviewed him, first of all.
I've interviewed him a bunch of times on Good Day New York. Listen, he's very charismatic. He knows the buzzwords. Sometimes his words can be into word salad, but he knows how to get everybody's attention. And I'm not so sure picking on the president on the first day that you've won the election is the smartest thing that you could possibly do. And yes, affordability is a problem in New York City for everyone. And you know what we're seeing? People are leaving, and it's because of taxes. Now Mr. Mamdani has run on tax the rich. They're the ones paying for everything. If they start moving, and they are. And you know how we know? Because we're getting a snapshot from the Department of Education. We now learned that at one point we had 1.1 million kids in New York City public schools. We're down to about 800,000. Wow. We've seen that many people move their families out of New York City for a number of reasons. Taxes, not happy with the way the public school system is going, dumbing down the curriculum to basically make sure that the lowest in the class is the focus rather than the one who's the smartest and making everybody rise. Listen, I'm an intrepid New Yorker. I've been singing to myself all day, we will survive, okay? Because we want New York to survive. Do I think Mr. Mamdani can do everything he says he wants to do? I don't know. We had Mayor Adams on our show this morning. He talked about the rent board. He gets 6 choices to stay on the rent board before he leaves office at the end of December. Those people will decide whether they're going to freeze the rent, which has also been one of the campaign slogans for Mr. Mamdani. So what I'm saying is Mr. Mamdani may not do everything that he says or promises, but like I said, we're intrepid New Yorkers. We'll get through this, and we're hoping for the best for New York City.
Yeah, I woke up feeling so sad today, but also just praying a lot, knowing that God is in control and everything is going to be okay. But Kaylee, I want to get your thoughts on everything, but also this in particular. So we know that Mamdani won by a little over 1 million votes, 1,036,000. And the combination of Sliwa and Cuomo added basically about another million. But the population in New York City is over 8 million. So is part of the issue for Republicans voter turnout? And is part of the issue that you're shaking your head no?
Because they had the highest turnout since 1960.
Yeah. But you guys, that's still the majority of people didn't vote.
I mean, this is one of the bluest places in the country. I mean, that's a fact.
Yeah.
The last time there was a Republican mayor that won was Mike Bloomberg. You're going back to the early 2000s.
That's my point. That it's, I'm not saying, and normally, it, frankly, but I want to, why not for Cuomo then? I think the reality is I want to hear what you have to say, actually.
Normally a Democrat gets upper 60, 70%, and you had Mamdani nowhere near that. This is a deep blue jurisdiction. Democrats were divided on this. Republicans just aren't going to win the city. It's deeply blue. It's getting bluer. People are leaving the city. There's been a decrease 2% of millionaires in the city. There's been a decrease of 10% those making $10 million or more. Those are the people he's going to need the money from. But wait, they're out. We already have in this city the #1 welfare and education spending of anywhere in the country. Very few results to show for it. But I like what The Economist said. They said the goal of affordability from Mamdani is worthy, but not his methods. His methods, as I just laid out, do not work. But Donald Trump's methods do work on this issue. Donald Trump gave Joe Biden, this is a fact, 1.4% inflation. You had Joe Biden that drove that up to 9.1%.
hand you 1.4, drive it up to 9.1. Donald Trump is successful 9 months in at bringing down prices. A dozen eggs, the price has dropped 79%. National average of gasoline dropped $3 per gallon in the first week of November. He beat market expectations in September with the inflation rate at 2.5%. Remember, it used to be at 9.1. Inflation-adjusted private sector wages increased by over 1,000. 30-year fixed mortgages, the nation was 6.7 at the end of October, 12% lower than when he took office. Donald Trump's policies are working. Last night, blue politicians won in blue cities. Do we need to get the messaging right heading into the midterms? Yes. But Donald Trump's methods, again, are working. Joe Biden's took us to 9.1% inflation. I've got the data, I've got the facts, and President Trump, I guarantee you, is going to share those facts in about 51 minutes.
Your takeaways.
Well, look, Democrats didn't just win in blue places. They broke the supermajority in the Mississippi state legislature. They flipped seats in Texas that had never even been competed recently. They, in parts of Virginia that are deep red, the average, I think, was 6 points towards Abigail Spanberger. In New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill got a bigger margin than Governor Murphy did a couple years ago. So it's not just that we won in blue places. Democrats won all over the country. And I think a few things are clear. Number one, when Donald Trump himself is not on the ballot, his ideas don't win. And all of these candidates, look, Mikey Sherrill, Abigail Spanberger, very different candidates than Zohran Mamdani. They are moderates. They worked in the national security field, but they talked about affordability. And Donald Trump himself even admitted the shutdown, the Republicans are getting blamed for it, and that they needed to talk more about affordability. Donald Trump properly diagnosed the problem. And so it's not just that we're winning in blue states.
When's the last time a Republican won in Virginia in the presidential election? 20 years.
But look, I was sitting.
When's the last time they won in New Jersey? More than that.
Kaylee, I was sitting at Fox a year ago when we talked about we couldn't call Virginia till very late in the night. We talked about New Jersey's shift rightward. We all talked about how young men were fleeing the Democratic Party.
And then what happened in the midterms? Democrats overperformed. It doesn't always predict.
A year ago, by the way, at the same time that the Democrats have no national party leader and the DNC is useless. Despite all of that, we beat Republicans across the country. And I will say,
was 2021 predictive of 2022?
No. I will say, we sat here in 2024. And we said, we've lost young men, we've lost Latinos. Mikey Sherrill outperformed with Latinos by huge margins in New Jersey. So all of these trends we've been talking about for a year, Republicans should not take them for granted. Last night was not just a Democratic socialist here in New York. It was Democrats, moderates, running across the country, breaking the back of Republican
who envision the deaths of children. I mean, like, that is literally your attorney.
I mean, Abigail Spanberger worked at the CIA. She is not a Democratic socialist.
One of the bigger stories is going to be how the Democrats are going to try to get this together and meld it and weld it together, because there's one on the left who won, and there's one, you say, in the middle is a moderate that won.
She's not a moderate. She's not a moderate.
She is absolutely.
Well, let's say she's
really. Then why didn't she pull her endorsement from Jay Jones, who talked about killing children?
Jay Jones was, first of all, she said she abhorred the comments and she disowned them. He was already on the ballot.
I didn't realize the new moderate was
What are the things Donald Trump has said about people, Kaylee, that you and others defend?
He's not envisioned killing children.
Oh, we can have a whole debate about the things Donald Trump says.
He's not said Hamas should not lay down their arms, who killed children. Like, that's a unique Democratic
That's not what Abigail Spanberger's saying.
That's what Zohran Mamdani said, who endorsed Mikey Sherrill, and she didn't disown the endorsement.
You guys want to talk about Mamdani, and I get why. He's charismatic and he's super left. Democrats won in Mississippi, Ohio, Virginia, New Jersey, red parts of those states with moderates. And if Republicans don't want to admit that today, they're going to be in for a rude awakening next year. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think part of the shock, at least for me, it's not that he's charismatic. It's that he's blatantly anti-Semitic. It's that
I don't think
his methods are neophytic. I mean, it's an absolute travesty. And that there were candidates considered moderate who refused to denounce and condemn horrifically violent rhetoric.
Yes.
I think I'm just surprised that people voted for that.
But a lot of Jews
didn't turn out to vote against it.
But a lot of Jews voted for him.
33%.
And a lot of Jews voted for him.
And that breaks my heart.
New Yorkers aren't dumb. They got to elect who they wanted to lead them. And if he fails, they will elect someone else.
He will fail. Socialism failed in the Soviet Union. It'll fail in New York City.
Well, we should all be rooting for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should all be rooting for the city to succeed.
Socialism's not going to succeed in New York if you want it to look the way it is right now.
Ben Shapiro is here, host of the Ben Shapiro Show. Ben, great to have you on set. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great to see you. You know, what's your overall takeaway as you look at this, and particularly with a view to what we have seen as anti-Semitism and the anti-Semitic problem in New York City?
I mean, I think that many of the things that people are seeing as sort of a bug of the Mamdani campaign, how could he be elected while saying all these anti-Semitic things? That's a feature. The progressive left, the wild progressive left that was tapped in the primaries and then spurred him to victory in the general. That progressive left is very, very fond of anti-Semitism. They're totally fine with not only anti-Israel feeling, but obviously with a candidate for mayor who said to you on the show that he obviously doesn't really care whether Hamas disarms. Like that was something that he didn't mind talking about, which is kind of an incredible thing.
You know, when you break this vote down, not just in New York City, in Virginia and New Jersey as well, we see this young vote, massive young vote, supporting Democrats. And when we came out of 2024, the message was really that there was this resurgence of sort of young conservatives out there. So what's going on?
So I think what the polling is showing is that young people in particular are just unsettled. And what that means is that if they don't get what they want from one party, then they're going to swivel and they will turn and they will vote for the other party. So Joe Biden was very unpopular. The inflation had really eaten away at people's livelihoods. And so people turned in favor of President Trump. I think that there are some warning signs here for young voters for 2026, even 2028, depending on the performance of the Trump administration. But one of the things that you're seeing with Mamdani, one of the things that you're seeing with I think, a lot of politicians these days is if you just say the problem but don't offer a solution, that might be enough. If you just say affordability, 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 and then your solutions are absolutely ridiculous, like tried and true failures, people don't care about the solutions. They just care that you empathize with the problem. The problem is that if you never solve it, then you are going to continue to see this kind of pendulum swing for young people from right to left and then back to right and then back to left.
It's like a generation of people, this is a big generalization, but who want to hear that they're seen.
Yes, yes. And also who have been told.
As long as you feel seen, it's okay.
I think that's right. And I think they've been also told by their politicians, only I can solve the problem. So I see your problem, and it's not solvable by you. It's only solvable by me. And then, inevitably, it's not solvable by politicians. And then people get dissatisfied, so they turn to, the other politician. And, I'm sort of waiting for more candidates to arise who say, actually, most of the problems in your own life are solvable by you, actually. And you should take more actions in your own life to make it better.
I'm curious what you think about Mamdani and his rhetoric and the speech last night, which the beginning of it was a lot of thank yous and hope for the future. And then all of a sudden it kind of took this pretty dramatic turn. And that did not go unnoticed by Van Jones. Watch.
The Mamdani that we saw on the campaign trail, who was a lot more calm, who was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech. His tone was sharp. I think he was using the microphone in a way that he was almost yelling. And that's not the Mamdani that we've seen on TikTok and the great interviews and stuff like that. So I felt like there's a little bit of a character switch here.
Sharp, and that he noted kind of a bit of a character switch. What do you think happened now that Mamdani is relieved from the burden of the campaign?
I think that he is saying all the quiet parts out loud now. I mean, he was largely through the campaign, but you could kind of gloss it with the smarmy smile and all of that. But now he's just saying everything out loud. I mean, the line in that speech where he said that government should be involved in literally every problem in your life and care about even the smallest things is full-scale frightening to anybody who has any historical knowledge of how government has interacted with citizens historically. And when he went through, and the only people he was citing as authorities were Eugene V. Debs, an actual socialist, and Nehru, another actual socialist from India, and on a non-aligned party during the Cold War. I mean, it really does speak to what Mamdani wants to do. He says he's a Muslim and a socialist, and he's going to brag about those things. He's not going to be shy about those things. I mean, listen, we all know that he's a Muslim. We all know that he's a socialist. But the fact that he is proclaiming that capitalism is the problem in the financial center of planet Earth does not bode particularly well for the future of this city.
You like to debate people who you have some disagreements with. Are you going to offer to sit down with him and have a discussion?
I'd be more than happy to ask him some difficult questions, but you did a great job at that yourself. So,
well, thank you, Ben. I would look forward to seeing your version as well. It's always good to see you, Ben Shapiro.
So later tonight, one more tour, one more stop for Turning Point USA, Auburn University in Alabama. It's the next stop on the fall campus tour. There's one more after that in Berkeley. Eric and Laura Trump will headline the event honoring Charlie Kirk in his fight for free speech tonight at Auburn.
We love Charlie. He was an amazing person. He has a profound impact on this country. And tonight's going to be an amazing event at Auburn.
So Piers Morgan, host of Piers Morgan Uncensored, author of a brand new book called Woke is Dead that we shall cover in a second. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, bud.
Jesse's got a big interview tonight, airing prime time, and I haven't seen all of it. I've seen some clips, but I've talked to some people who have, and this is really touching and moving stuff, and it's the first time she's talked about it. This is the moment that Erica went to the hospital to see her husband for the final time.
You wanted to see Charlie immediately and came up. Take us through that.
When we walked into that room, he had this smirk on his face. That smirk to me is that look of, you thought you could stop what I've built. You thought that you could end this vision, this movement, this revival. You thought you could do that by murdering me. You got my body. You didn't get my soul.
That's powerful.
Very moving.
So we're going to watch that tonight.
You know, Erica Kirk is, well, she's just a remarkable woman. I mean, I didn't know much about Erica. I'd interviewed Charlie a few times. And, you know, it's interesting. I wrote this book really as an advisory to liberals, right? You've got to rethink this woke ideology, particularly about free speech. You've got to stop thinking that if you hear an opinion you don't like, the only response is to shame, to vilify, to cancel, and in Charlie Kirk's case, to actually murder somebody because you don't like their opinions. And the hideous irony of Charlie Kirk is that he spent all his time going to university campuses up and down America, sitting there with thousands of students who didn't agree with him and said, come and prove me wrong, let's have a debate. He did it with courtesy, with respect. He allowed them to have their say. He argued. He came to the Oxford Union in the UK and did it back in May. And so he was like the standard bearer for what free speech actually is. You know, as Winston Churchill said, it's not about being able to listen to opinions you agree with. We can all do that. It's about being able to tolerate opinions that you don't like. But, you know, even hate speech, actually, if it doesn't pass the bar of criminality, if it's not an incitement to violence, actually what free speech means sometimes is listening to people saying hateful things and tolerating it and accepting it's their right to think that and to say that. We have lost that, and it's been driven by the woke left. And Charlie Kirk's assassination was at the hands of a deranged young person who genuinely had obviously convinced himself that the only way to shut up Charlie Kirk was not through the power of debate, but through the power of a bullet. But he did not, I think, factor in Erica Kirk, who has become this extraordinary standard bearer for the torch of Charlie Kirk. And it's been, I think, quite remarkable to watch.
And not just growing.
I think she's one of the most interesting people in America right now to watch. Go ahead, Dana.
That's okay. I've echoed the same, but I would say that the growth of Turning Point USA since the assassination is remarkable in the United States, but also in the UK.
Yes, and it is really about free speech. There was a fascinating thing. I mentioned the Oxford Union. Charlie was there back in April, May this year, and he debated with somebody who then wanted to become president of the Oxford Union, which is the most probably prestigious debating society in the world. Every world leader's been there. He stood opposite Charlie Kirk in that chamber with the students debating him. And then what happened? The moment Charlie Kirk got shot, this guy went public with LOL was his first response. And his second response was, Charlie Kirk just got shot, let's effing go, with exclamation marks. He was jubilant that this man who he debated with in a debating society had been shot because of his speech. And luckily, the students at the University of Oxford have rallied against him now, but there are still some that support him. And the gleeful way that so many on the woke left celebrated Charlie Kirk's death is another thing I talk about in the book. It is despicable, the idea that you would celebrate the death of a young husband and father who simply for the crime of expressing his honestly held opinions, but always wanting to debate it.
Woke is Dead is the book,
yes.
And we're glad to have you here stateside.
Good to be here. Woke is dead, and it's not actually dead yet, so I do need everybody's help in finally
It's an aspirational title.
I want to find the antidote to the woke mind virus. We can do this together, people.
Tis a mere flesh wound.
Yes. Well, you know what? I actually think the ideology's dead, but a lot of people haven't got the memo yet on the left, and they will never, I don't think, be properly electable again until they go back to understanding what being a liberal is actually about.
Got it. Good luck.
Here's Morgan. Thank you so
guys.
much.
I want to play some sound because this is the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, before the voting began today, talking about the reason that they're doing this. Watch.
First of all, we're not throwing out the independent redistricting. We're affirming national independent redistricting. We're maintaining our current independent redistricting for statewide races, but in response to what happened in Texas, temporarily changing the maps for 3 cycles for the congressional races. It reverts then back to its original form.
As soon as he says we're not throwing out the independent redistricting, you had chuckles around the table, Katie Zachariah, because clearly, what do you think?
Well, that's all it did. It actually threw out the Independent Redistricting Commission entirely. And I love when they say this. We are going, and it'll come back. Once you've taken power, you are not giving power back to the people. That is time and time again, and it is an age-old truth. And he upended the Independent Redistricting Commission, and he did exactly what they wanted to do, and he took legislative authority, and he did partisan gerrymandering. These are all in violation of our state constitution, and he sits there so comfortably and he lies out his teeth. Texas redistricted because the Biden DOJ sued them on their 2020 census. This was not a partisan gerrymandering. They had to redistrict, and they did it within their constitutional authority. Gavin Newsom has usurped this, and he has done a mid-cycle redistricting outside of the Constitution trace. It is so sad to see an uncomfortable liar lie and lie again.
Let's bring in Wall Street Journal editorial board member Monet Ukwe-Barua. Monet, it was decision day yesterday. Decisions were made. And this morning, the New York Post puts it this way. They say, on your marks, M-A-R-X, get set, Zoe. Mamdani wins race for mayor, the red apple. So now that he's won, what does this mean, and will there be a ripple effect?
Well, I think the ripple effect is already taking place throughout the entire Democratic Party. People were watching Mamdani's candidacy in New York to see, is a candidate this far to the left really viable? Can they get a broad base of support? Now, New York City isn't like the rest of America, that's for sure. It's a much more liberal place, but I think that there's already a lot of donors thinking we can run Mamdani copycats, people who are really, really clever with social media, people who are going to promise free benefits to voters, and that's the playbook that they're going to have going into the midterm elections in 2026.
Okay, but that said, will it work outside of New York City?
I don't think so. I frankly think that you're going to see a lot of people watching closely what Mamdani does, trying to implement things like free buses. We know that's going to create a lot of chaos and homelessness, watching things like free grocery stores. And around the country, they're going to be seeing these results playing out poorly in New York City and saying, we don't want to replicate that all around the country. So I think Democrats might be preparing to run a playbook in the midterms that's not exactly going to pay off for them.
Okay, so during his speech last night, you heard it. Mamdani went directly after President Trump. I know you're watching. 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. And then on Truth Social, President Trump responded also with 4 words, writing, and so it begins. So what will the Mamdani-President Trump dynamic be? And do you think that the president should intervene in New York City by withholding federal funds, which is something that he has said he will do?
Well, I think that there's going to be a lot of tit for tat. We are just seeing the beginning of it. These two are going to be sniping at each other, and it's going to be covered far and wide. In terms of what President Trump tries to do with New York City, I think it depends on what Mamdani's approach actually is. Things like sanctuary city policies, saying we're not going to cooperate with federal law enforcement on deporting illegal immigrants. That's something that the federal government really does have an interest in. And so President Trump would be well within his rights to say, we're not going to give you all this aid that's potentially going to go to pay for illegal migrants if you are going to completely stonewall us from keeping the residents of New York City safe and deporting people who aren't supposed to be in this country.
Looking ahead to 1 year from today, or from yesterday, the 2026 elections. You mentioned in your first answer that there's going to be a year to find out what Zohran Mamdani does to this city. And then the voters throughout the country can extrapolate from that whether they want that in their communities. So 2 questions for you. What do you think that specifically means for the midterms in terms of who takes over the House or who maintains the House in the Republican sense? And Governor of New York, Because Elise Stefanik probably going to run. If it's not like a guarantee, it's a fait accompli at this point. Does she say, look what Zohran Mamdani did to New York City. Do you want that spread throughout the great state of New York? If not, vote for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. The winds are clearly blowing strongly in the Democrats' direction here. Mamdani wasn't the only winner on Election Day. You also saw New Jersey and Virginia. They won those governorships. There's a lot of disappointment with how Trump has performed in some of these states. And so Democrats are in a strong position going into midterms to potentially reclaim the House of Representatives, especially. But I do think Mamdani is going to help give Republicans their best possible shots, because they'll be able to point to a very extreme Democrat in America's biggest city and say, this is the direction that Democrats want to take the entire country. Elise Stefanik in New York running for governor is going to specifically be pointing to Mamdani, the effect that his candidacy has on crime and things like that in New York City, and going to be making that pitch to say we need to go in a different direction here in New York State.
Yeah, it was a good night for Democrats, but now that Mamdani has won, the whole party is going to have to answer for socialism, and we'll see how that goes over the course of the next year. Now that the election has passed, we're officially in midterm election cycle. Can you believe it? The time has come.
It just goes on.
It is now. Wall Street Journal editorial board member Monet Ukwe-Brouillot, we thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.